Greetings, everyone. If you make it to the end of this video, I'm going to say thumbs up to you. And I'm going to also say I like and share your philosophy or, your idea that there are other explanations for the creation story and that you have no issues embracing the idea that you are one with spirit and you're one with the ancestors. Now, let's do a working knowledge of the term cognitive dissonance. It's used to describe the mental discomfort that results from holding two conflicting beliefs, values, or attitudes. The inconsistency between what people believe and how they behave motivates people to engage in actions that will help minimize feelings of discomfort. And what I want to say to you that even though we are programmed or socialized to believe one thing spiritual or spiritually, or in other cases, those who are religious, we still behave in a way that there's a conflict between what we believe and how we behave. And that's where the term cognitive dissonance is going to be worked throughout this video. I can further say or explain that when we talk about cognitive, we're talking about knowledge or awareness, a kind of notice. And dissonance is a lack of harmony or the tension or clash that exists. So when it comes to dissonance between rhetoric and personal behavior, I'm going to try to explain it in this video. So, for example, many of our people don't seem to be aware, there doesn't seem to be notice or tension that exists between Africa and its colonizers. For the most part, our people seem to be so accepting and so forgiving and so embracing of the things that happened to their ancestors in the past. But there is also a kind of dissonance, like a child crying, like a person screaming, like an alarm going off, would be this example of how annoying or disruptive some of our behavior is. And that is a direct link to the fact that what is going on inside spiritually is fighting against what is going on in the mind. Cognitive dissonance causes feelings of unease and tension, and people attempt to relieve this discomfort in different ways. For example, explaining things away or rejecting new information. So that conflict which exists in our belief system has a lot to do with that, back and forth, the cognitive dissonance, that knowledge and awareness that is lacking, and that lack of harmony that exists or tension that exists in our group, in our community. On the screen, you're going to be looking at, some information about the IkenGA and the different museums around the world that hold these. And you're going to ask the question, what is a IkenGA? Now, for many of us, when we hear about Africa or African spirituality, it makes us very uncomfortable. For one, it's because it's demonized. But the question you should ask yourself is, why are our artifacts or the things that belong to Africa demonized, and yet they're kept in museums around the world? And at a time when people are becoming more aware or awakened, they're saying, bring us back our spiritual artifacts. Bring us back the IkenGA. Now, IkenGA literally means strength of a movement. It is a horned alusi found among the Igbo people in southeastern Nigeria. It comprises someone's chi, which is their personal god. Is in Dichi, which is the ancestor, known as the IkenGA, which is also right hand. Ike, power, as well as spiritual activation through prayer and sacrifice. These are the personal things for our people that we, in our spiritual growth and our spiritual understanding, we are tied to these things. and you have Europeans and other people around the world, particularly Europeans, who have gone into Africa and removed our artifacts and have it in their museum. And now there's a call to say return it, and they're saying, well, we can't really return it to you because you don't know how to take care of it, which is such, to say insult is an understatement. Okay, now when a Jamaican look at these kind of images, the first thing they'll come to their mind and say idol, and they'll, say demons, and they say all these things. And when you look at that image with the Baphomet, you know there's a particular reason why they would create that image, because there's a slight resemblance of some of our artifacts, some of our special spiritual symbolisms. So when you see that as a black person, you automatically is going to jump. And when I say black, use that in quotation, you know what I mean. We're struggling trying to get away from calling ourselves black, but for reference sake and understanding that. Now, if we're not uncomfortable with, example, this ship that was named Jesus, looking at these things and it doesn't make you uncomfortable, I have such a difficult time understanding why, looking at some of these images that are from Africa, without even knowing the meaning behind it, without even having this thing in you to say, I want to go and research this and find out what this is about. You immediately feel the sense of discomfort, but you're not uncomfortable looking at the symbols that represent our bondage in the past. And so we look at our spiritual beliefs, those of you who search to find it, and when we hear these things, it makes us uncomfortable. But on the screen, these images don't make you uncomfortable, and they should. They are so disturbing that they should have you running for cover. Okay, now when we hear about Idemili, which is the mother of the pillar of celestial water, of wisdom, of knowledge, of all of these things, we then would say, okay, so our gods, our spiritual belief system should not be cast aside in exchange for another one that is only speculating on truth, because no one has the full autonomy or authority over truth. In every race, we're all trying to find God, and our interpretation of this God, it varies, but we're all in that point where we're searching. So what makes your God or your God story more authentic than mine own? We're looking at primordial understandings. And when we hear about dualism, which is what is introduced to us in the West, and we examine the two sides of the brain, which is light rises from water, the idea that is of light coming from water, and we say, this is what God looks like, and this is how you should worship God, that is very problematic, because my God, especially if I use the Christian context to say that I was made in the image and the likeness of God, therefore my God could not look like the white man's God, because my image and my likeness is completely different, is separate and apart. So I'm saying, in order for you to know truth, you must then stand in authority to be able to face the spirit that dwell within you, to release that power. And when we look at scripture like Leviticus, it is a cult like sort of description of how to attain love or how to become spiritually awakened. The idea of sacrifice, all death before life can exist. And so to activate the word of Yah within, we have to change, because we're tied to these lies. And so power and majesty in Africa, when you look at the lions and the water and the power structure and the whole idea of a IkenGA, where everyone has their own personal chi or personal spirit that guides them or leads them, and they link it with what people call idols. But when you look in the Christian world or other places, you see these images of, Jesus on the cross and all these other things in these other realms of spirituality that we don't seem to have a problem with, but we are so scared to know the truth. You see, when I am praying and I'm asking and talking to who I consider to be my God or my chi, I'm not asking the same things some people ask. I'm asking for love in my heart. I'm asking for patience in my spirit. I'm asking for understanding in my mind and kindness in my dealings, goodness in my work, righteousness in the way I stand, forbearance in my hurt, courage and boldness in my battles, wisdom in how I walk, discernment in my decisions, protection in my path, strength in my soul. And when I ask for these things and expect divine protection, I must then picture in my mind an image that can relate to me or identify with me. And so we are walking through the world serving other gods that don't know us or we don't know them. And when you listen to people talk, even in Jamaica, when they're talking about this obia that they know nothing about, and you hear them try to separate themselves from something they don't even understand. It is so comical. It is such a big joke. And some of the pictures that passed earlier is showing you, Freemasonry and their work. When you look at some of these games, like the chess games, for example, you see that pawn, the black and the white pawn, you see the checkered, black and white tiles. And when you realize the black pawn has to die first, because in Leviticus, the sacrificed are often our people. And so we don't know how to work with our own power struggles, to identify with the spirits that dwell in and around us. We don't know that our ancestors deserve, acknowledgement, and to be invited to know that when they come to us in our dreams, they're coming to guide us and to teach us and to inspire us in the different ways. I don't want to draw this out too much, but I'm very excited about talking about this thing, because guess what? Our power structure is weakened because we don't know who we are as a people. We are not able to do awesome things, or those of us who are able to do awesome things is because we've long gone rejected and abandoned the stories that are told to us, which are often lies. We don't know how to stand in our own authority because we are allowing other folks to put their authority, their stamp of approval on what belongs to them, even as they take ours and have it in museum and teach us how to distance ourselves from it and how to hate it, and they refuse to return it. That does not make sense. It makes me curious to say, why do you have this? Why are you doing this? I'm going to wrap up this very soon, and I'm going to say all the spirits of our powerful people are captured. Hence, you see Black people now not as powerful or strong as they used to be, because all those who were revolutionary fighters, they capture them. They capture the spirit of these great ones and use them for their own power structure or for their own, movement to continue to control. So not only do they capture the spirit of those who are alive, they capture those who are gone. And everything that allow us to become powerful is, caught and kept under some kind of surveillance. And so we're going to see more and more of that. And until you understand that everything is connected, and the world of Leviticus, which is the occult, that requires us to die before we can have a rebirth. They say die, the old self must die and give rise to the new birth. But we can't die to our traditions or die to our roots or our spirituality, for we will never rise. There will never be a rebirth. There cannot be a rebirth if you don't know who you are. And when you come into this world for ascension to become, you have to then follow the principles of those who understand you, your customs, your tradition, your spirituality. I'll end this here for now. Stay blessed.